Admiral Kathleen Holdo sacrificed herself and died, so good riddance for that. I really hope they don't bring her back in some stupid way in the next season. By the way, just before she died, when she was disarming that torpedo, her voice suddenly sounded very raspy, very electronic, so for a moment I thought, wait, is she possessed by the AI? Because in some scenes previously they showed that whenever the AI is possessing someone with the nanites, his voice sounds kind of like that, and suddenly her voice was like that, so I guess it was just the accident of the actress and they didn't bother to redub it because suddenly she sounded like the AI. So that kind of confused me for a moment, but I guess that was just the actress smoking too much or something, not clearing her throat before the lines, and so that really threw me off. And I'm really glad they killed off that character who was pointless. So what else? I kind of predicted that Ash Tyler will bring the Klingon fleet to help out, because in the previous episode he said that he needs to go somewhere, so I made a prediction video, I tried to predict what's going to happen, and I predicted that he will bring the D7 Klingon fleet into the action to save the day. I kind of like these kinds of scenes, you know, the Orville did that also with the Krill. The Krill showed up to save the day in a scene very similar to Deep Space Nine episode Sacrifice of Angels, when the Klingons showed up to save the Federation fleet from the Dominion. And we have the same exact kind of scene here, even down to, you know, Ash Tyler and the Chancellor appearing on the screen. So this scene could have been good, it could have been dramatic, but then they totally ruined it with another stupid moment when they suddenly revealed that the Kelpiens also show up in Baul starships. And oh my god, this was so ridiculous. I mean, the Kelpiens are a Bronze Age people. We saw that they live in huts, and suddenly just a few weeks later they know how to pilot starships and to do space battles and stuff like that, and we see Saru's sister personally piloting one of those Baul fighters. So wait a minute, so first of all, what happened with the Baul? I mean, we saw that the Baul technology got disabled, so what, did the Kelpiens kill them all? Did they eat them all? What happened to the original owners of that technology, the Baul? Also, didn't they say the Baul just discovered warp drive, that they were not that technologically advanced compared to Starfleet? So how the hell are their ships even powerful enough to help out in this situation? Do you mean to tell me that the Kelpiens took over all their technology, they repaired all their technology which was disabled by the Red Angel, which I guess had the magical ability to disable all the technology? The Red Angel suit disabled the entire Baul civilization on that planet. The Red Angel suit, which was the same one which this episode established, which was Michael. It was Michael doing that stuff. I mean, they even said in some episode that the reason they know the Red Angel suit is from the far future is because of its advanced technology. And then later they revealed it's from the past. It's from 20 years earlier, built by Michael's mother. And so one of my excuses for that was to say that maybe that was technology she found in the future, so the original Red Angel suit was only a time machine, so all the other extra stuff was stuff she found in the future, and yet in this episode it's revealed that it was Michael who saved the Kelpiens in that episode. And remember what she did? She sent out some kind of pulse to disable all the Baul technology on the planet. So if she could do that in the past, why didn't she use that ability against the Section 31 ships? Why didn't she simply send out that pulse to disable all their technology? I guess maybe because the Baul technology is not as superior. I guess that can explain it. Still, why didn't she use any of those amazing abilities to help out in the battle itself? So anyway, we see the Kelpiens, who were a Bronze Age people, suddenly knowing how to pilot starships and helping out in the space battle. So that's also one of the most ridiculous parts of the episode, in my opinion. And it ruined the moment with the Klingon. It took away the glory from the Klingons, because, you know, the Klingons showing up to help Starfleet, that could have been nice, that could have been epic, but we barely saw any of that. We saw like a few short scenes with L'Oreal. Oh, we also saw that giant ship decloaking and ramming one of the Section 31 ships. Aren't the cloaks useless? Why didn't Section 31 detect their cloaks? I mean, they have the algorithm to see the cloaked ships, so how exactly did the cloak help in this situation? And also, with all this mess going on with this giant battle, with all these shuttles flying around, how exactly was this giant ship able to sneak up on one of these ships with all the stuff going on around it? So wouldn't those small ships be colliding with it? So none of this really makes sense. It's just there for the special effect, and just totally ridiculous. And the Kelpiens self-teaching themselves how to pilot ships is just absolutely ridiculous. I guess they established Saru's people from being very smart, because, you know, Saru also learned everything in just a few short years, but at least he had some help. At least he was guided by Starfleet, I presume. Someone taught him all those things. He didn't simply study it by himself and knew how to pilot a starship by himself. And yet his people, without anyone's help at all, suddenly know how to pilot starships. So this is just as stupid as that movie Battlefield Earth, which showed the primitive people who were kind of in the Stone Age suddenly learning how to pilot alien starships in just a few days. So this is just as stupid as that. So anyway, Philippa Giorgio fights Leland, who sometimes has a super strength and sometimes doesn't, and she's totally uninjured by everything he's doing to her, and they fight in the corridor, and the gravity is shifting only in the corridor apparently. On the bridge everything is normal, no one is flying out of their seat on the bridge. So only in that corridor in which they were fighting, the gravity was fluctuating, and it was like in that Inception scene, fighting in the corridor, rolling on the walls and on the ceiling. And then she manages to defeat Leland with magnets. And then there was kind of a disturbing scene of her enjoying how much he suffers when he dies. He gets all the nanites pulled out of him, and she's kind of laughing at him, enjoying it. And I found that kind of disturbing. I mean, I know she's from the Mirror Universe, she's not a Starfleet officer, but isn't she supposed to be the hero of a spin-off show? So how disturbing is it that the hero of a Star Trek show is basically a space Hitler who committed genocide against trillions of people, and she never repented for that? She's still joking about all of that constantly. She keeps remembering how many people she killed, innocent people that she slaughtered and committed genocide in the other universe, and now she's taking pleasure out of watching someone suffer, who, I remind you, is just a victim. Like, that guy was not evil. He was shady because he was in 31, but he wasn't an evil guy. He even had a scene admitting to Michael what happened to her parents, which he didn't have to do, so he wasn't really a bad guy. And she's simply a victim of these nanites. And yet she's enjoying watching him suffer. I presume the part which is suffering is the Leland part, right? So all the nanites are going out of his body, and he's crying out in pain, and she's taking enjoyment out of that. I mean, Star Trek used to be about morality. It used to be about negotiating with the enemy, finding peace with the enemy, and having mercy on your enemy. There was a whole bunch of scenes in which the hero even tried to save the villain in the end. Even though he was the villain, he was the bad guy, but a lot of times the Starfleet hero tried to save him, like in Star Trek 3, when that Klingon was falling down, Kirk tried to save him, and when Picard killed Shinzon, he was sorry about that, he was crying about that, and there was a deleted scene in Insurrection in which Picard actually tried to save Ruafo, despite everything he did, and Sisko feeling sorry for Gul Dukat after what happened to him. And so the heroes never took pleasure out of the defeat or suffering of the enemy. They were much more merciful, they were much more kind of moral. And also in a lot of Star Trek episodes, a conflict with the enemy was actually resolved with some kind of a peace gesture, with some kind of compromise, some kind of negotiation, and not just killing the enemy and taking pleasure out of it. So this scene is really the opposite of the Star Trek spirit, in my opinion. And suddenly I remember the TNG episode Evolution, in which the plot was nanites taking over the Enterprise. And the nanites even tried to kill the crew at some point, they tried to poison the atmosphere on the ship. But how did they resolve the conflict in the end of that episode? Did they simply wipe out all the nanites? Did they kill all the nanites? No, what they actually did was negotiate with the nanites. They allowed the nanites to talk to them through data. And Picard actually negotiated peace with them, and then the nanites ended up helping them in the end, and then they resettled on their own planet. And that was a beautiful, good ending in the spirit of Star Trek, which was always about peace and exploration and finding a diplomatic solution with your enemy and not just killing your enemy. And so this really shows the contrast between this show. So this show is only about the action, only about killing the bad guys, while TNG had Gene Roddenberry's real vision of negotiating with the enemy, and that your former enemy will become your friend. And even though they were facing with nanites which tried to kill them, Picard didn't want to exterminate them because he knew they were intelligent. And so he reached a solution with them in which he simply allowed them to form their own colony on the planet. And so that was the true Star Trek spirit, not what we see here in which she's taking joy out of watching someone suffer and die. So this is totally the opposite of what Star Trek should be about. I kind of expected maybe they'll do a twist in the Star Trek fashion. Maybe the conflict will be resolved with them actually giving Leland the sphere data that he wanted, and maybe after that he will become sentient enough to realize that he doesn't have to kill anyone. So I kind of expected them to do a twist like that and maybe end it with kind of a good ending and not just killing the bad guy, maybe do something unexpected for a change and do it in the Star Trek spirit, but they didn't. So it was just about killing the bad guy. And of course, once they kill him, all of the Section 31 ships, they all shut down immediately, just like the droids in Star Wars 1, because they were all controlled by this one host, which doesn't make sense, because shouldn't he simply be working for the AI and not the other way around? and then despite them defeating the AI, they still go into the wormhole anyway for no reason.